Hey guys, Geoffrey here. And before I begin this interview with you, I wanted to give this a bit of background context because we have right now 62 interviews with our clients who all of them have reconciled despite being in very difficult situations. So you guys are used to that. But in this video, I'm going to show you for the first time an instance where someone actually did not reconcile, but instead they got something better than that. So let me show you the screen. So basically, if you go back to the goals of what we try to help our clients do, if we try to help them build these 5 pillars, we want to train them to allow them to build sexual passion, goal alignment, mutual admiration, psychological safety, and emotional safety better than any man can. So the goal here is not just to be average at this or to be above average. The goal here is to become irreplaceable at this. That your partner can look at this and go, there is no way I can look at any other relationship and find more emotional safety, more psychological safety, more mutual admiration than what I can find in this relationship. And the way we can make you irreplaceable with the 5 pillars is by focusing also on the internal shifts. So can you be irreplaceable with the frameworks, with the bulletproof vest, with the untetheredness, empathetic mind, self-esteem? Now, when we talk about irreplaceability, a lot of people talk about money, talk about power, talk about how muscular you are and how fit you are, whatever it is. Those things are what we call the necessary, but not sufficient. If you are fit, if you're rich, but you don't know how to create all these things, it's necessary, yes, that you are fit, but it's not sufficient. If you master this will give you the necessary and also sufficient. So there's really 3 levels of growth that people usually experience. So let's start with number 1 here. Level 1 growth is this is where most of you guys probably are at. So when you talk about the skills of creating alignment, admiration, safety, you talk about the frameworks, bulletproof vest, untetheredness, you're below average here, which is why you're struggling. And so people in this position, they always find themselves in a position where the more they try to do, the more they try to pull their partner, the more they try to say something, do something, they actually find that they push their partner further away the more they try. So they're faced with the problem of, I have no choice, which is why they're so desperate often. But the worst part is that these people are often unaware of the low skills. And so they have this, what we call the illusion of choice, which is that, okay, my partner's pulling away whenever I try to do something. That means that it must be her fault. It must be that she doesn't appreciate my value, the low level value. So then people will say, oh, whatever, then find a new partner. But then when they find a new partner, they realize that they repeat the same cycles over and over again. And this is how really bitter people become. And so they blame external things because, they're so unaware of their low skills. They don't really know what they're doing wrong. They don't have enough information, enough knowledge to even understand what they're doing wrong. So if they can't look within to blame themselves and what they're doing wrong, they blame external things. Of course, this is not where you want to be. But most people only want level 2. And this is what most aspire to be. But this is just level 2. This is where people are looking for very tactical, very low level skills like work on your pies, for example. Tactical. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to say, Jeff. And it's very average. Yeah, they might be able to create safety, admiration. They might be bulletproof, but if you really look at their level of bulletproofness, the level of safety that they create, it's still just above average. Maybe it's average. So it's not irreplaceable. It doesn't turn heads. It doesn't make people go, wow, I cannot find this anywhere else. So yes, you might have grown some here, but you still need to pull your partner back in because your partner is not coming back by herself. So you feel the need to pull her back in. And most people who are joining the program, they think that this is what growth is that I want to grow so that I can reconcile. I want to grow enough so that I can get my partner to come back into the relationship. If this is where you are, if this is what you aspire to be, understand that the best outcome you can get is what we call false reconciliation. That is when, yes, you pulling your partner back in might work in getting her to come back, but in her mind, she's not coming back because she wants to come back, because you're irreplaceable. She's coming back because you're the best that she can think of right now. But in the back of her mind, she's always going to be thinking about, what if I explored? What if? So we get a lot of clients who started off in this false reconciliation stage, And the thing they feel is that they always sleep with one eye open. They don't know what's going to happen to the relationship in 3 months, in 6 months, in a year, because they're not in control of the ship. Because there's nothing for them, for their partner to go, you know what I'm getting here is kind of average. I can find this in so many other places, in so many other relationships with so many other people. Let me go find someone else. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. And the thing about relationships, guys, you have to understand is that just by your partner being married to you doesn't entitle you to stop doing the work to try to impress your partner. Because the truth is that just like you, your partner has choices. They only have one life here. You cannot expect your partner to stay in a relationship that she doesn't feel happy with. And again, they're also often unaware of the average skills because they often say here, well, I've grown a little bit, but my partner doesn't appreciate it. So whatever, screw her. And you find someone else. But again, you realize that whoever you find, you need to pull them into your life because you're not irreplaceable. Where Zackary's at is what we call level 3 growth. This is where all my clients are at and where I want my clients to be. This is when their growth of everything here has become irreplaceable. They have become literally unmatched, where their level of safety, the level of admiration, alignment, passion, their BPV, untetheredness, empathetic mind, self-esteem, for example, is so far beyond any other man that it's so blatantly obvious for their partner to where they would feel very silly to leave. This is a spot when you attract not just your partner, but many people. Now, at this point, you have a new, what we call a champagne problem, a good problem to have, which is that you have a problem of choice. And that's what Zackary felt. So as he grew to level 3 in creating all these things, he had, and you will see this in the interview, he had people, women DMing him and wanting to meet him, wanting to be with him. And now he has the problem of choice of, okay, now I have 5, 10 people wanting to be with me, wanting to spend their whole life with me. Do I choose my partner, my existing partner, or do I choose someone else? Now, most of my clients who join the program, they choose their partner eventually. But some, like Zackary, end up not choosing their partner. They end up choosing someone else. And this is really the only true state of security and bliss, guys, because here is the point where you can't lose. So here's something I want you to think about as you watch this interview, right? The first thing I want you to think about is, should reconciliation be your highest goal? So there's a lot of programs who tout, for example, 75% reconciliation rate. What about if a program where their growth literally takes them way beyond just reconciling? You know, for a lot of my clients, reconciliation starts off as the main goal, just like Zackary, but eventually becomes a side effect. It's almost like if you try to shoot for the stars, you might land on the moon. The moon is reconciliation for my clients. But for you guys, the moon is the star itself. So what if a program can allow you to grow so massively beyond level 2, just aiming for reconciliation to reconciliation is an artifact, it's a natural artifact, it's a given. Now I want to go higher. I want to become irreplaceable. And in this case, like Zach, for example, he became level 3 and he decides that, you know what, maybe I don't really want my partner. Is that success? That's not a reconciliation, but is that success? So what is your idea of success? When you are trying to save your relationship right now, is your idea of success reconciliation, or is it to become irreplaceable? If your goal is to reconcile, then you're aspiring to here. If your goal is to become irreplaceable, you're aspiring to be here, where you cannot lose anymore. So I want you to think about that. And throughout this video and throughout this interview, we'll be talking about the key principles that got him here. How he started off here, but he realized that once you grow, you want to be here. And this is the only true state of where you can get secure, where you can get blissful, because knowing that you're irreplaceable, knowing that your partner is there because they chose you. You don't have to sleep with one eye open anymore. You can sleep with ease because you know that in a month, in 6 months, in a year, there is literally nothing that can tear you guys apart. Hey everyone, so today we have Zackary Deal. So Zackary is known in the program as sort of this A+ player. But I think this interview, you will notice, will be a bit different than most of the interviews that I do, in a sense that here, the result is not reconciliation. In fact, it's something even higher than that. And I think a lot of people who are listening to this for the first time, who are hell-bent on reconciling, and that's the only goal, will find this to be a bit confusing at first, or a bit controversial, I guess. But my purpose of this interview is to show you why, I think one of the biggest problems that plague this industry of marriage reconciliation, of marriage courses, and so on, is that they make the goal of reconciliation into the one and only goal. So you hear a lot of coaches and programs talking about and bragging about, oh, I have a 75% success rate in reconciling couples. So I'm not sure that's a good thing. And so what this interview will do is kind of walk you through the thought process, the philosophies behind what we're talking about here, and why reconciliation should not be your highest goal ever, why there is higher goals that you should be attaining, that you should be focusing on, to hopefully allow you guys who start off being confused by this interview to eventually find the clarity and understanding what is the big picture of my life here, right? So I guess, Zach, if you could start off with explaining to us, like, how was your life like when you first joined the program, when you first met me? Give me an idea of your mindset, of what your goal was, what you were pursuing, everything like that as well. What's happening in your relationship and so on.
When I joined, which was in October of 2021, this was a couple weeks after my wife told me she wanted a divorce, and I was spiraling out of control. For me, it came out of left field. I wasn't aware she was even unhappy. And so, we've been together since we were kids, since we were 15 and 17. So I'm 33 now. So you do the math. I just never thought we'd ever be divorced. I didn't realize that was an option. And my mindset was bad. It was bad. I was the epitome of being a victim. Everything was happening to me, and then I found your videos on YouTube and realized, oh, you know what? I probably do have a big hand in this. Like there might be something I can do for myself through all this. So I don't have to, I knew I couldn't continue the way I was. I knew it would just be bad, and I just needed some help. I was desperate for change. Your program seemed positive. It seemed uplifting. It seemed like it was going to be hard, like it was going to be challenging, like it wasn't just going to be a cakewalk, like you just say these things and your life will magically be better. And so for me, when I found out when I found out Katie wanted a divorce, I was devastated. I mean, that's the best word I could use to describe it.
So I think if I could kind of paint a picture of what that was like, because I deal with a lot of applications for people applying for the program and so on. And, there's always like a knowledge curve that I notice people fall under. So, we talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect, where the less you know, the better you think you are sometimes. And so I think people start off there, where they think they're so awesome. But what's really happening is that they're not awesome. They're not actually good. They know so little about how relationships work, how life works sometimes, how interpersonal connections work. They know so little about their own flaws that they can't ask the right questions to actually realize how they're not actually good. So they think they're so awesome because they can't see all their flaws.
Yeah.
But I think once people start to understand, let's say they watch my videos a lot more and they start to study themselves, study relationships, they realize that, ooh, that's a lot I don't know. So the learning curve isn't always like linear like that. It's actually, it goes down first, where at first you feel like, oh, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, and you feel like you're going backwards a bit. And I think when you were first joining the program, what you're saying is you're sort of like just on the cusp of realizing, oh, that could be me. Like I could be one of those people who think they know a lot, but they don't actually know a lot.
Right.
Right.
I think I just have a pretty good paraphrase for this. It's like you grow up in this meadow, right? And there's this small hill, right, in this meadow. And you think to yourself, one day I'm going to climb that hill. It's a pretty sizable hill. And you're like, okay, today's the day I'm going to climb the hill. And that's when you start your relationship. And then you're climbing that little hill and you get to the top and you think to yourself, like, okay, yeah, I'm awesome. That's awesome. Like, I just climbed the tallest thing in my entire environment. Like, I'm way up here, I can see everything. And you have no realization that, 2,000 miles away, there's a mountain that people are climbing, and they're
like
I
Mount
guess what I'm trying
Everest
to
or
say,
like K2, whatever,
yeah, exactly. You don't realize, like, when you think you're on top already, you don't realize you're just standing on maybe a little hill when there's mountains out there.
Yeah, and I
there are
think
people performing on top of mountains.
it's interesting because like we always talk about how we take in less than 10% of clients. And the reason why I think is whenever we find people who haven't really recognized their own problems yet to the full extent, I can't help them because they're not ready to actually ingest and take in information yet. So I kindly turn them down and I say, save your money, keep your money in your pocket. I'm not going to take your money, but come back when you really, really want this, when you really feel the need to do this. And sometimes people are here and they need to experience life and get to know life a bit better to realize how much they don't know. And I think when they realize how much they don't know, then that's when they wake up and that's when they become teachable. And I think, part of that too is for you, for example, right? I mean, you knew so little about relationships to the point where things were breaking down and you had no idea because you were playing this subconscious bias and confirmation bias of you were awesome. So if something bad was happening, you convince yourself that that bad thing wasn't that bad, or you convince yourself that the bad thing can't be you. It can't be with you. It's not your fault, right? It has to be some other external stuff, some other people's fault. And this keeps the lie going until life continues to give you the slap in the face until you can no longer say that. And you just say, you know what? I got to surrender to the fact that some part of this is me. And I think that's the point where people become coachable, right?
Right, exactly.
So,
yeah.
I think that was where you were. And I think you mentioned too, to me, in the beginning of that journey where that victim mindset actually wreaked havoc in a lot of other parts of your life as well, where it was killing your career. I mean, there was a long period of time you said that you weren't even having a job or making money. I mean, tell me more about that part of your life too.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I absolutely struggled with depression and anxiety, and I spent so much of my energy trying to fix those things to no avail. The pandemic obviously didn't help my job. I was a freelancer, so I took jobs when I got them, and at the beginning of that, I was hustling, I was meeting people, I was going out, I was working all the time, and then I started staying home and watching the kids more. And between that and then the pandemic happening, I was just sort of isolated at home with the kids. And even before then, I don't want to blame the pandemic. It wasn't the pandemic. The pandemic made things worse, but it didn't start there. It started before there.
But it's funny because the pandemic happened to everybody.
It did.
I mean? It did happen to everybody. It's almost like, when I was playing golf back then, I used to always tell myself like, oh, I hate it when it rains. I can't perform when it rains. Yeah. Or it's like, dude, it's raining for everyone. Do you realize that? Right. So you can blame that all you want, but it's like some people thrive under rain. You don't thrive under rain because you play victim. It's kind of the same thing here where like COVID happened to everyone, dude. Like
exactly. And you know what? My whole life I played the victim. My whole life, my whole 33 years, I played victim. It's like anything that happened to me was somebody else's fault. And I almost I want to laugh thinking about it now. And sometimes I do laugh. Sometimes I'm just sitting in my car driving and I just start cracking up laughing about how ridiculous I used to I used to live my life in such a ridiculous way. I laugh. It makes me laugh sometimes. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, so I was always a victim, and that's it's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, like you're a victim, you feed this victim mentality, and that puts you in positions to fail, you know? It puts
I
you in
think so.
positions
I
to
think
become a
when
victim.
yeah, when you play the victim, it demoralizes you to take action. It makes you
Yes, yes.
complacent in a way. It
Oh,
makes
for
you a bit
sure.
depressed in a way. And
Absolutely.
whenever that depression or that complacency leads to bad actions, I mean, that's going to ruin your relationship, which will make
Yeah,
your partner respond badly to you. That
yeah,
will ruin your relationship with your children, with your
sure.
work, with yourself, with your life.
Yeah.
And then when your relationship with your kids, with your wife, with work starts to falter, of course, when that destroys, you blame other things too, further
Hmm.
fueling this thing. And it's just a never ending cycle, which is why, like, when we see people playing victim and blaming things outside of themselves, and this includes people who think like their situation is very unique, because if you think your situation is unique, you're basically saying like, oh, I have no control because mine is unique.
Hmm. Right,
Like, you're just not coachable at that point. So
right.
I think we have a picture here of how things were back then. I mean, your wife was basically saying like, I want a divorce, and of
Yeah,
course, that desire for divorce was due to you playing victim for a very long time. And it's just hard to be around someone who plays victim like that, who always feels like
right,
people need to be there to rescue them. People need
right.
to be there to, like, it's never their fault. It's always other people's fault. Their situation is so
Exactly.
dramatic, so unique, so different than
Hmm.
yours. You can never understand them. I mean, it's exhausting to be around people like
Right.
that.
Yeah, you don't know what it's like to be depressed. Like, how are you going to leave me now? Like, you
Yeah.
know, like at the bottom,
Yeah.
I'm already at the bottom, and you're going to drop me even further. It's like,
Exactly.
you've heard it all. Like,
So I'm gonna post a few screenshots, I guess, around the
okay.
screen somewhere of the how things are like now, because you find yourself in a very interesting position where, you know, you and your wife, Katie, in your own words, actually, in every definition of the word except for the marriage part, you're reconciled. I mean, you have the four pillars. You're talking in a deeper sense of the word of communication than you've ever communicated. And I think you're communicating deeper and more openly than any couple has communicated, than most average couples who are married, right? And not only have you reconciled in that department, but also you find yourself in another relationship with a nickname you call Doc. So now
Yes,
you're
yes.
juggling
We'll
kind of
call her
two
Doc.
relationships, right? So I guess tell me how that was like when you were trying to still reconcile with Katie, and you did, and you met Doc as well. And you mentioned also that now there's legit a line of women waiting for you. I mean, tell me where you are now. Like, how are things like now?
Yeah. If you would have told me 9 months ago this is where I would be, I would have said you're full of shit. Get out of my
And where
face.
you
Like,
are right now, just to make sure people are clear, is like you have choices. You have choices now,
yes, yes.
right? And you can
Oh my God.
choose which mountain do I want to climb, which is different than reconciliation here, right? So I guess,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I don't want to take away from anybody who wants to save their marriage. I think it's a very admirable thing to do, and to build yourself up, and to save something that you've worked so hard on and you have so many hours into already. I think that's a very admirable thing to do, and I commend anybody who has the power within themselves to make that sort of decision. Like, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do everything I can. Um, and that's where I started too. I ultimately set out to save my marriage. Um, that was when I had one idea of marriage, and as I progressed through the program, and this is maybe unique to me, I don't know, but where I landed in my mind was I can have the most fulfilling relationship with my wife, Katie, that I've ever had in my entire life. All that, I realized, like, marriage is not it's not the end goal for me. I can have the four pillars with her, and while I don't have the fifth pillar with her, um, which is
Which is sexual passion
physical
and that intimacy side
passion
of
and
things. Yeah.
intimacy and stuff, like, that's fine. That's fine. We had that together, and it was beautiful, and it was great, and neither of us regret having that pillar with each other for as long as we did. But, like, I think a lot of people get caught up there. I think they put too much weight in that top pillar, and they go, well, it's either all or nothing. It's either I get every pillar, or I don't want any pillar. And for me, I knew I wanted a relationship with Katie, in whatever form I could have it in. And I got to the point where I no longer wanted to save my marriage. And that's a whole long story full of, things that we can go into if you'd like, but it's ultimately my decision. And
I think I want to break that down a little bit more for our audience too, because this is a very novel concept, I think, for a lot of people in how they see relationships. And this can sound very controversial to a lot of people right now. And people have a lot of questions, I'm sure. So let's break it down for people. So let's start with this. I always have this analogy that when people come into the program, they are on the base of their mountain. And just like your example earlier, when they're at the base of their mountain, they look around 360 and they realize, like, okay, I see one highest peak right there. I want to get there. And for all people, the highest peak is reconciliation with their current partner. But then what happens when they join the program is that they get this hot air balloon that can fly very high. You learn a lot of skills into how to untether. You learn a lot of skills on how to manage your own emotions, to manage your thoughts, and change your paradigms of how you see yourself, the world, your partner, everything. You learn the frameworks to be able to connect deeply with people, no matter where you go. You can use that connection to build the core pillars of what it means to have a relationship in a very, very deep way, to the point where you are now, where you have women lining up for you.
It's insane.
Like, you are you are governed by this choice of, I can replicate success anytime I want, anywhere I want, and you're filled with that confidence too. And so what happens is, as you learn these skills, you are growing and growing and growing your value over time, and you're floating in that hot air balloon. And maybe sometimes you float past what you thought was the highest peak. And when you float past that, you realize, oh, shoot, there's so many higher peaks, right? Now, for a lot of people in a program, even when they go past the highest peak, what they thought was the highest peak, and they looked around, they realized that what they thought was the highest peak was the highest peak. They grow themselves and they realize, like, my ex-partner is someone I want to still get back.
Sure.
And they reconcile, right? But there are a lot of people like you. And I just had an interview last week with Jeremy Farenbrink. Same thing. As you rise up, you realize that your ex-partner may not be what you want anymore.
Yeah. And I don't want to think about it as in terms of whether I want her or not, because I want her in my life. That hasn't changed from the start.
But in terms of like someone you spend the rest of your life with, in a romantic setting.
In a romantic setting, exactly. And that's sort of
a different story. Yeah.
For me, it's like, and that's not even it. It's just the whole concept even. And I don't want to be pedantic about it. But the idea of marriage and for me anyway, has just sort of gotten to the point where it's like, well, that's a great thing. Marriage is a wonderful thing. I don't personally think it's a measurement of anything. I don't think it's, if I'm not married to Katie, it doesn't mean I love her any less. It doesn't mean I can't laugh with her and spend time with her. And hell, it doesn't mean I can't have sex with her even, if that's something we both decided we wanted to do. I mean, the only thing is we'll file taxes separately at the end of the day. And that's just the way I see it. That's my personal take on it.
It's a very interesting viewpoint because, and I resonate with that very highly because, I think obviously I've built kind of like a little family within my client group. I have 1,000+ people now who is like, they're very tight. I mean, you see it, you experience it. We're so tight. We see each other like family.
For sure. Yes.
So you guys know, like, I'm not married.
Right.
And I'm the guy who people twice my age are coming to me for marriage help.
Right.
I don't even have kids, and they're coming to me
Yeah.
to get advice about like, how do I improve my relationship with my children, etc.
Yeah.
So if you look at on paper marriage, I shouldn't be qualified to talk about anything. But if you truly looked at our relationship, right now, we have better communication than anybody in the world. I can guarantee you that. We find fulfillment in each other. We have goal alignment better than anybody in the world. And right now, we have sexual passion hotter than anyone in the world, I think. Right? Hotter than I can even imagine with anyone else. Right? We are building a multi-million-dollar house together right now. We already planned our 2 weddings that is going to happen next year. Who cares if they don't have a piece of paper telling us we're married? Right. For all we know, we've been married. Yeah. We've been together for 8 years now. Yeah. We've been married for a long time. And we are better, in a better position, in a better state than anybody, than most couples. I would say 99% of couples who are married. Right. Exactly. So who cares? Right. So in your case too, like, sure, you're gonna get divorced. Yeah. But it doesn't remove that connection with her. It doesn't remove that safety that you both feel for each other, the alignment, that whatever it is. It just means like, it's arbitrary. You know what? And maybe even the concept of marriage and it being lifted from us even that will make us stronger. Even the dissolution of our marriage might make us stronger friends. I'll have to see. I'm not exactly there yet. I did get served papers, which I was excited about. Like, it's great. Like, we're gonna do this. Like, we're gonna move forward with our lives, and we're gonna be there for one another. Like, it doesn't have to be. And I talk to other people who have no idea about this program. They have no idea like what my processes are. And they've got their own like stock processes, and they're like what? Like, they don't understand that like Katie and I don't hate each other, that we still roller skate together, that we still take the kids to go do things, and they don't get it. They could not process it. It's like short circuits their mind to think like you could divorce somebody and still love them like you did, when you were married to them. It's so and even in a deeper way now, because like, my love for her it's not, compounded by this idea that I'm married to her anymore. Like, I can choose to never see her again. Well, we've got kids, but you know what I mean? I can distance myself as far from her as I want. You can. So I think the first takeaway I want people to kind of have from this, and you tell me if you agree with this or not, but it's a very important takeaway, I think, is reconciliation is a very subjective term. I don't think you can define what that is, because it's different for everybody, the standard or what that means, right? So I get really confused how other coaches can say, we have a 75% reconciliation rate. How do you measure that, right? For your case, for example, right? You communicate deeper than most couples out there. You align goals deeper than most couples out there. You admire each other deeper than most couples out there. You have most pillars out there. But you didn't technically reconcile. But to me, that's better than reconciliation, right? Like, it's so vague. Like, what does it mean, reconciliation, right? Yeah. You can even talk about our clients who have reconciled. Okay. There's a lot of people in the program who, after a month, they say like, oh, she wants to come back, but then realize that she didn't want to come back for real, right? She came back because I was the least bad choice she had. Right. Not because she wanted to, because she needed to come back. Right. Is that reconciliation? I don't think so, but they would count that as reconciliation. So like, guys, don't get so myopic around this idea of like reconcile. When you actually reconcile, it's not this eureka moment that you both have together. Oh my God, we're together now on this date on May 25th, 2022, we have reconciled. It doesn't exist. The whole process is very vague. You can't really even pinpoint what day you reconciled, when you reconciled, when the tipping point was. There's no tipping point. The same way, if you imagine like a big flywheel and you keep spinning that flywheel every single day, it's like faster and faster and faster and faster. And someone asks you, which spin did you do that made it spin so fast? I'm like, it wasn't one spin. It was just a culmination of every single day. Right. And it's kind of the same thing here.
Right.
Yeah,
it's like a racetrack that goes on forever and there's no finish line. It's like there's no finish line. There's not a point where you go, oh, I've crossed over into winning, It's just you keep building it. And then as you build, the great thing is you're also building yourself. So even if there was a finish line, like you would put it further out. You would say, I'm going to just keep going.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep going.
I'm going to keep going. So I'm going to reconcile more and more and more.
Yeah. I want to reconcile more.
Right. Like for me, for example, right now, like if we have 5 minutes, like sometimes we drive in a car. I'm always the one who's driving the car and my partner's on the passenger seat and we're like just getting out of work mode. Right. And we feel a bit emotionally disconnected because we're like, we haven't been spending time together. That to me is like, oh shit, I need to reconcile. Right? It's not nothing. You're not even close to divorce or breaking up, but that's like to me, that's like my standard of reconciliation. So I think the first takeaway again for people is like, yeah. So I think the first takeaway for people too is again, don't get so caught up in this idea of what reconciliation is, right? Yeah. Just understand that it's different for everyone, right? It's going to be different for you. So just open your eyes to different possibilities here. Now, I want to build off of this first point, and I want to build off the second point, which is, again, this notion that, so I think people start their journey of reconciliation with the idea of reconciling with their current partner, right? And sometimes I think when we do that, when we're so tunnel vision into that goal, not only does it rob us of potential higher outcomes, right? But ironically, when your goal is to reconcile like that, you're going to put yourself into so much pressure via tetheredness. And that pressure is going to change the way you talk and present yourself with your partner, that the more you want to reconcile, the less likely you will reconcile. It's this like very mind-bending concept of untetheredness that I want to talk about here, right? Yeah. So I guess like let's spend a minute on that. So you mentioned when you first joined the program, you were very, very tethered, meaning that everything you did was to save the marriage, save the relationship. Let's first talk about the effects that has on you, like your ability to learn the program, your ability to uptake and master the processes here, your ability to be able to execute the frameworks or conversations from a place of genuineness. I mean, tell me the effect of tetheredness on how that wreaked havoc on all those things,
Well, it was something that I really struggled with was tetheredness at first. And I think it's a normal thing for new members to struggle with is, we've built our lives around these other people and now we're threatened with the idea that we've got to exist separately of them. So, eventually I think time untethers you on its own if you wait long enough. Maybe for some people it never does. Maybe you never fully recover from a divorce, from being tethered to another person. So for me, I remember it was in version 2 and I was just speeding along through version 2. I was listening to it in the car and I was just like, I gotta get through this. I gotta save my marriage, like that's the goal. Like, oh, don't be outcome focused. It's like, okay, sure. Like, don't be outcome focused. You're like, yeah, that sounds great. But like, what do I say? Like, what do I need to say to save my marriage? Yeah. And I was totally tethered and I still felt all the anxieties I was feeling. And I remember thinking like, I need to stop. And it was from, Jason, I think he made a post.
Before we get there, right?
Posts. Yeah.
I want you to think back into the past here, because I know that was a long time ago. But think back in the past into like, okay, so you rapidly consumed this program.
Yeah.
I think you theoretically knew and conceptually knew what changes you needed to make.
Right, for sure.
But I don't think you could actually do it. I don't think you can actually deliver on it. I think the internal shifts were very shaky at best.
Yes.
Your frameworks, whenever you start a conversation, was very pushy. And I think I remember a time when Katie didn't respond very well to that, where she was resisting that because she was like, your changes seem fake. It seems unreal. It seems like I can't believe it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the first takeaway too. I want another takeaway that I want people to have too is like, if you want your partner to believe your changes, you have to do them, not because you want to reconcile, but you have to do them because you are. So like, don't do because you want to have, do because you are.
Right.
And you cannot do because you are until you become untethered. So ironically, until you become untethered, nothing you do will seem genuine, which is why we say the more you want to reconcile, the more you are so stuck on this idea of reconciliation, the less likely you will reconcile because the less likely your partner will believe your changes. You can smell that shit, right? It's very stinky.
Right through it. Yeah. It's stinky. Yeah.
And I think if your experience was similar to most people, I think this tetheredness you feel of wanting to reconcile too fast, it gives your partner a lot of pressure, right? A lot of pressure to say like, okay, you better change your mind now. If you don't, I'm going to get really impatient, right? So the feelings of wanting to surrender to the feeling of reconciling doesn't happen organically anymore. It feels forced. And when it feels forced like that, we talk about this in one of my videos, like a lot of people can reconcile, yes. But if you reconcile without having surrendered to that decision yet, you're always going to be sleeping with one eye open. You're always going to be trying to get out, right? Because like humans have two decisions. Decisions we have surrendered to and decisions we haven't surrendered to. There are many decisions you make, for example, where you make a decision and you're always second guessing, looking at the grass on the other side, looking at like alternatives. What if? You have buyer's remorse. But then you have decisions where you make it and you don't look back. You don't question it. You just go like, fuck yeah, I'm just in it now. There's some jobs you have, some career path you chose. I mean, sometimes you jump into it and you surrender to it. But if you rush that process because you're still tethered, you cannot allow your partner those ingredients to be able to surrender to that decision. So your reconciliation is even fake if you even get it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And when I became untethered, it unlocked everything. It's like the bulletproof vest was like, it was funny before, I was untethered. But then after I became untethered, it's like, oh, she can tell me anything she wants. Like, I hope she does. Like, please tell me these things.
Yeah. And that's ironically when she started coming closer to you too.
Yeah.
Opening up more and more. Like, you are the first person she thinks of when she says like, I need someone to talk to. I need someone to emotionally connect to. You're the first person she thinks about, right?
Yeah. Which is incredible. It's amazing. And we didn't talk at all, the gaslighting and the stonewalling, it was all there. And obviously I don't blame her for any of that. I would have absolutely done the same thing if I was married to me.
It's funny. I want to pick on that because like, that's crucial. As people might have glossed over that. That's crucial for me because a lot of people going through stonewalling and gaslighting, they are going to blame it on their partners. So like
they do it to other people too. They just don't realize it.
Yeah,
like they do it.
Yeah, but people don't realize like they stonewall, they gaslight.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because of the environment, the context of your life led you to that there. But if you change the context, just like how you change your context of your relationship, suddenly all the stonewalling and gaslighting went away too. So it happens all the time with our clients, right? They come in thinking like, oh, my partner's toxic, she's gaslighting, she's like has all these problems, these personality problems. It's like, no, she doesn't. I think if you change your mindset and you lead the culture a bit better, you realize that people will change their ways too. It's almost like me becoming a leader of my company. I can, like, whenever my partner, my employees make a mistake, I can say, oh, they're just careless. Or I can ask, like, how can I change the culture, the environment, the context of their workplace so that making mistakes becomes harder? And you know what? Everyone can become superstars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just giving people the space and the understanding to talk. And if you've not done that long enough, then why would you continue to try to talk? Like what? Like you wouldn't do that if somebody just said, shut up anytime you try to say something, like stop talking. You'd eventually just stop talking. And then if that person turns around and goes, "Oh, why aren't you talking to me?" You know, like what, you know, why don't you have this conversation with me? It's like, well, because, you know, this whole time you more or less like ignored me or shut me down anytime I tried to open up. So it's like, and we all know people in our lives that either experience that or do those sorts of things. I mean, we all do it, and in some ways we do it too. It's like, you know, the annoying guy at work. Like, do you sit there and entertain him when he talks to you for like, if he wants to talk for 2 hours, do you talk to him for 2 hours, or do you go, oh, you know, man, like that's funny. Like I'll catch you later.
You know, it's interesting you
like,
say that because because the example you gave was very blatant. It was very obvious, right? It's like, oh,
very obvious.
I
Yeah.
try to talk to you and you say, shut up, don't talk to me, right? But
Yeah.
often the way we destroy that safety is very subtle. So I remember an instance with my partner too, when she was telling me about something about work and she was excited about it, right? She was excited, also nervous about something. So she was like, oh, you know, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. I have this idea. I have this idea. And instead of just listening to her and rewarding her for sharing that, rewarding her for expressing, I went into like my man mode and I started to like give more ideas. It's like, oh, you should do this too. You should do that too. You should do this too. Have you thought about this?
Yeah.
Have you thought about that?
Right.
Now, initially my thinking was like, oh yeah, I'm feeding into the energy. Great, 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 awesome. But what actually happened, and she talked to me about this a week later, was like, it's like, you know, when you said that, it really made me not want to share with you anymore. Because like here I was just excited about something, and then now you gave me just a pile of shit, of ideas, of like flaws of my ideas. And while, yeah, your ideas were great, maybe it came at the wrong time. You gave it at the wrong time. I didn't even feel understood. I didn't even feel like I wanted to share.
Right, exactly.
So it can be that subtle that you destroy safety. And I think that's the part where people miss often. It's like they destroy safety. They don't even know they're destroying it because they're so blind to it.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing is like Katie and I, we never fought. We never argued or bickered. I mean, we argued, but like just, it was passive arguing, you know, and it was more just like she'd tell me something. I'd be like, oh, okay, that's cool. You know, like that sort of thing. Like
dismissive.
But for years, it's like
I'll say it's cool with my words, but I don't want to give a shit.
Right. Yeah, it's obvious. Like, it's like, oh, okay, great. Yeah.
Okay. Even that subtle thing.
That's awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, cool. Yeah. Like it was never any like, oh, well, you know, tell me more. That's fucking amazing. Like, tell me more about that. Like, what do you got going on? Like, how did you do that? Like, how are you feeling when that happened to you? You know, it's like, there was none of that. It was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. See you later.
Now, I did want to talk about that also, but I did want to go back to the main point of the second point here, which is like, if you are still tethered to this idea of reconciliation, again, you're robbing yourself of, not only are you lessening your chance of actually reconciling or making it zero, in fact, but you're robbing yourself of higher and higher goals again, because again, like for you, for example, I think if someone told you, you have to reconcile with Katie, you have to, that's the only win here. Mm-hmm. I think you would feel a bit deprived. You would feel a bit robbed of something because like you're like, I want something different right now, right? And I think true growth shouldn't just be peaking at reconciling. True growth should be like, you should have a choice. If you want to reconcile, because after you rise up, you realize that your partner is still the one you want, go ahead. But if you rise up and you realize that your partner is not the one you want right now, for whatever reason, you are free to make that choice too. But either way, you have the freedom of choice. And I think that's what we're trying to say when we say like, reconciliation is not the highest goal. It should be something better than that. Right. Yeah, now, sorry to cut you off. I do want to make sure like we make the time as well. I guess the third point is like on that point of self-growth. Right. What does it mean to actually grow? I guess, tell me when you first joined the program, what was your idea of self-growth in your definition, in your books, if you could like think back to when you first started?
My idea of self-growth. Well, it wasn't something I spent a whole lot of my time thinking about. you know? Yeah, I was caught up in this idea that like I already knew everything. I'm this intelligent thing that, oh, like let's talk politics. Like I know more than you, you know, and just guys, that's a bad way to be. It's not even fun. It's not fun to be that way. It's more fun to say like, I don't know anything about this, or what I think I know is probably wrong. And that's something I've learned through this program too. It's like everything I thought I knew about myself was just in some way it was either wrong or there was just so much more underneath what I thought I understood.
Yeah. Give me an example of
And
that. Give me an example of something that you learned that was like, oh shit, I can't believe I used to think like that. And the
okay,
second example I think is around levels, right? It's like, oh, I thought being like this was like level 3 like this, but level 50 is a different ball game entirely. Give me some examples of those two.
yeah, so you know, just that exactly, like thinking that I knew everything. I thought I was on this high level, and really I wasn't even like on level 1. I was just acting out of this lack of self-efficacy, out of self-empowerment. Like I didn't truly get my power from within myself. I didn't realize that if I met with any sort of obstacle in my life, any sort of problem, that even small things, that I have the power to affect positive change on those things.
I think an example of that I can read between the lines of what you're saying is like the antithetic mind is a great example of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think if
Huge
you
one for
observe,
me. I love that so much.
yeah, like if you
Just
observe the
it's my
world,
favorite thing I've gotten out of this program is just being able to say, well, what don't I understand about this?
yeah,
Like just shut up, just shut your own head up for a minute and just think. Like you don't have to know right now. You can think forward in time and ask yourself, what don't I know? And then respond, not being reactive,
yeah.
um,
So I
getting
want to
more
go deeper
information.
into that because like I want people to get a taste of how deep we go. Because
Yeah.
sometimes I think like saying the words, dude, you won't know it until you experience it, versus
Yeah.
showing people like, okay, here's the paradigm shift to think about. Think about how you never would have figured this out yourself, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think marriage is, well, or just like where I got to in my relationship, even is, it's not at all where I started. Um, I started when I started my marriage and my relationship were the same thing. And I had to save those things. They were a package deal, my relationship and my marriage. And then, along the way, I reiterated and took all of these ideas and these paradigms about marriage and what a relationship is, and everything you teach in the program. And I sort of found a way to unwind it in my mind and make my relationship and my marriage. And then I thought, well, I could reconcile this, or I can reconcile this and have these other experiences. I could climb these other mountains and
No.
have these other things that I
Yeah.
didn't even consider before I joined the program, but now I'm considering,
So let's
because
give an
life is so much
example.
fun.
Yeah.
And
So let's give an example of that, right? Because like if you look at the world and how they operate, people love opinions.
yes, very
Right? People
much.
love opinions. Like
Yeah.
we give the example in the program of like, okay, you go to a store and you see some clothes. You say, oh, these clothes are me. This is not me.
Yeah.
You go to a group of friends. They're me. They're not me.
Right.
Experiences. That's me. That's not me. I can do that. I
Yeah.
can't do that. I like to do that. I
Yeah.
don't like to do that. So over time, we really enslave ourselves to this tiny little bubble of our world, of our experience,
Yes.
and we expect other people to have that similarity to where like, oh, they don't have the same interests. I'm like out. If they don't have the
Right.
same
Exactly.
philosophies, fuck them. You know what I mean? And so it really starts to, if you really think about it, right?
Yeah.
Society is geared and is run to let you become smaller and smaller and smaller in your bubble. Like
For
it literally
sure.
traps
For
you and
sure.
imprisons you. Like think about the things people say, for example, right? It's like, oh, like if you're talking about politics and you have no opinions about something about politics, what do people call you? People call you ignorant.
Or they blame you for being part of the problem. It's
Yeah,
kind of funny.
yeah. But
Well, you're
so
not doing anything to
they're
change
they're
anything.
they're asking you like you need to have an opinion. You need to have a strong opinion about something,
Right.
right? If you dress just however you want to dress,
Right.
people will say, you don't have any personality there. You don't stand for anything. You're not expressing yourself. So everywhere you go, people are always trying to jam you to one side. People are always like trying
Right.
to lock you into like an identity, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this
And the
identity
world
is
at
almost like
large
this
does that
key.
too.
Yeah, so this identity is almost like this key. The opinions you have, the strong opinions you have about something, the strong likes and dislikes, everything. It's almost like a key that you can enter certain societies in life. If you want to get to the group of friends, you better become that person, right?
Yes.
You better have that identity. But I think what happens is when people start to lock themselves in a lot more, it makes it very difficult for people to actually be in harmony with people, be in harmony with the world. Right.
Yes.
So yeah, go ahead.
It's funny. It's funny you bring this up because Doc, this woman I'm seeing now, we have absolutely nothing in common. She's I dropped out of high school. She's spent most of her life in academia. We don't listen to the same kind of music. We don't watch the same kind of movies. We don't eat the same type of foods. Like, we could not be any more unlike one another, but we are building this incredible relationship with each other in spite of those things. And she's very much, sometimes it feels like she's been in this program. Like she'll work outside of her own comfort zone. She's used to being uncomfortable. And so, she's got a very antithetical mind. She goes, what don't I know? Or like, why shouldn't I try this? Or what are all the reasons I should? Like, maybe I'll like it. Like, so it's just funny how unalike we are, but how we're just working together so well. I don't even want to say in spite of those things. I want to say
because
it's
of those synergistic things. It's almost like, my partner and I are very different too. So Samantha, she's a major extrovert. I'm like introvert. I can spend 3 months, 6 months in a forest by myself with just my book and be happy for 6 months. I don't need to talk to anyone for 6 months, right? She's very creative and messy in her thinking. I'm very methodical, right? Our interests in music is very different too. Everything about us is very different, but we get along like glue because it's almost like it's an orchestra, right? She's a violinist. I'm a piano player. I don't look at the violinist and I don't go like, well, no, I want another piano player. And she doesn't go, I want another violinist. It's like, dude, if you have 2 pianos, it's kind of a boring concert. I'm sorry.
Right. Exactly. And it's just been, that's the thing, Katie and I, we have everything in common. And of course that's great too, to be able to share those things is great too. But this it's great in a different way. And also it's just you sort of realize how unimportant those things really are in a relationship, because to me, that's what was important. And I think to Katie too, when we first met each other, that's what was important. We were kids, with similar interests.
I mean, people talk about this too, right? It's like, I want to meet someone with the same interests.
Yes, exactly.
It's like, I have a lot of single friends right now. And like, one of them was saying, oh, I need her to also like dogs. I'm like, like, really? That's your criteria? Like, that's your criteria. It's like, they're not allergic or anything. It's like that's your criteria. Like, you have to be similar in so many things that you don't allow for any differences. And no wonder you're single at 35.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think maybe, I could be wrong, but I think maybe people lean on those things because they just don't understand how a relationship works. So it's easier to go, oh, we
convenient excuse. It's a convenient excuse.
Yeah, it's more of an excuse more than because it's like no 2 people like exactly the same things,
Yeah.
But it's just funny. It's really funny sometimes because we are so different in so many different ways, but it's awesome. It's like a positive thing in our relationship. It's not anything that's ever been negative.
But you know what's funny too? I was thinking, because I was thinking too, like, let's think of this in terms of the effects it has on safety too. Right. So let's say my partner just went on a shopping trip where she bought a bunch of makeup. She comes home, she's excited, she's giddy about it, but I'm not interested in makeup. I'm like, like you, like, oh, great, bye.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
Right.
oh,
Well,
cool.
the next time she's not gonna share stuff with me.
Right.
Right. That ruins safety. So think about that, and think about how many experiences you guys are robbed of because of the fact that you can't appreciate each other's things. Think about it, right? Think about all the experience that I've had with my partner, which I learned to appreciate her stuff. And we can enjoy something together, like going to a concert or something like that, which I would hate to go and under normal circumstances. But I learned to enjoy that, and I learned to be empathetic on that. And I expand my band of operation. That's massive, 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 massive stuff.
Yeah, it's funny too, because a lot of those things, you know, come from bad paradigms. Like, oh, I'm not interested in makeup. I'm a man.
I'm a man.
Like how could I be a man and have it show any interest in my wife's makeup? Like, that would make me less of a man. And then what would happen?
Yeah.
She wouldn't like me anymore, Geoffrey, if I was interested in her makeup.
But I think a lot of people looking at your example there will question the genuineness of it, right? It's like, well, Jeff, you're basically, and Jeff and Zach, you're basically saying like, I should like whatever I want to like. I should do whatever, even though it makes me uncomfortable, I should do it. Doesn't that make me ingenuine? It's like, no, I don't think you understand what genuineness means, right?
Yeah.
You know what's ingenuine? What's ingenuine is, if let's say my partner tells me, hey, let's go to Sephora, to a makeup store. And deep down, I'm like, I don't like it, but I'm like, well, I want to be a good boyfriend, so I'll just go with you. And you reluctantly go. That to me is very ingenuine.
Yeah.
Maybe you can bring it to yourself to actually like love the topic of makeup. Maybe not put it on yourself, but like love talking about it, know about it, be interested. Maybe you don't know, whatever, right?
Whatever you're into, you know. But like, I don't put makeup on, but like, maybe I will. Who knows?
Yeah, but like if I can go into Sephora and actually enjoy it,
yeah,
and I can enjoy whatever I want, that's actually genuine. That's genuine. I'm genuinely wanting to be there. I genuinely like being there, and I say yes to going because I like being there. That to me is more genuine than the first example, right? So like, let's cut the crap about this definition of what genuine is. There's no such thing as like a definition of who you are, who you should be. It's all made up.
It's all made up.
It's all made up. Yeah. And like, if you think about it too, like the last implication of this empathetic mindset too is like, couples never break apart because of similarities. Let's think about that. Couples never break apart because of similarities. Couples break apart because of differences that they cannot reconcile. They're hard-headed on. So the more you lock yourself to like these things, these corners of life, you imprison your mind, the more likely that one day, as you go through life, which you might not find in the beginning stages of the honeymoon period, but as you go through life, you're going to find these differences that butt heads. And if none of you can be empathetic enough to actually reconcile on those, that's how people grow apart. Right. So, I mean, so many major implications from a simple concept like empathetic mind on your life. And so people who are listening to this, right? How many paradigms did we give you today when we talk about the empathetic mind that you just freaking blew your mind? It's like, oh, I never thought about it like that. I never thought about living like that. I never thought about thinking like that. Yeah. This is what I mean. I think what Zackary means when he says, there were just some things I just didn't know. And there are just some things I thought was right before that I realized is wrong now. There's so many things where I thought I was playing at a high level, but I wasn't even close to playing at a high level. And there was all these things where I thought I was doing the right things, but actually was contributing to the mess of our relationship because I was playing victim too. So the reason why we went deep into this empathetic mindset is because I want to show people here that like, dude, there's so much people don't know. And self-growth is about programming these things so deep inside, becoming the performer, where thinking empathetically, where being bulletproof, for example, becomes your natural default. And this is the fourth point I want to make, is like this notion of what it means to make it a natural default, where it makes it part of your identity, right? Because, and I'll start with my analogy and I'll let you kind of continue with that, from that analogy. You know, I think a lot of people, when they're trying to reconcile and they're trying to better themselves, they are seeking like a few tactics here and there. Tell me what to say, tell me what to do, and I'll do that, right? But what you don't realize, though, is that behind every relationship problem and behind every attempt to reconcile, you need to get like a very complex set of 100 to 150 things correct, kind of thing. It's almost like your body. In order for you to live, to function, this one for 5 fucking seconds, even, there's so many intricate things your body needs to do to keep yourself even alive. Now imagine if suddenly all the automated processes that you have in your body becomes non-automated. Like your heart doesn't beat by itself. You don't breathe by itself. Your fingers don't move naturally without you thinking about it. Like you have to think about every single motion your body has. Digestion. How many things can you focus on at once? Maybe 5 things, right? I can focus on moving my fingers. I can focus on beating my heart. Maybe 2 things, really. And I can do those 2 things perfectly well, but I would still die. And I think that's what happens when you look for tactics, because like you have to get so many complex things right. Your microtones, micro expressions, the way you pick nuanced words of how you say something, the way you think and the way you subconsciously think and the way you talk back to the bad ways you think in the moment, etc. There's so many things that needs to go on. If you're relying on tactics, that's like you trying to operate your body by trying to consciously figure out like, okay, what are the 2 things I need to focus on? And you're going to do the 2 things right, but you're going to do 105 things wrong. You know what I mean? Like it's like trying to catch 100 tennis balls at once. It doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so a lot of people, like, I hate it when people comment like this. They're like, I tried this thing that you did, Jeff, and it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, did you do it right? Did you get all the nuances right? Like, or did you just like do this expecting it'll just magically change? Yeah. So like,
you're not
bettering
chasing
yourself,
that either.
It's not about knowing these tactics. For me, bettering yourself is programming these things so deeply within yourself to where you can now accidentally do the right things. You can do the right things without thinking, right? You change your default state, your default action. So I guess let me pause there. I know I said a lot there. But tell me how that has manifested in your life, how you've kind of reached that level. And
well, not anymore. It's like, it's hard not to do the right thing. It's almost hard to fuck up in a way. It's just like I know who I was. I know what I was, but I don't even feel remotely similar to that person anymore. I mean, that person does not exist in my mind anymore. And like, I don't feel him, you know? And it's hard to talk about because you almost have to think about yourself as someone you're not anymore, you know? Like, it's like, you know, explain to me what it's like,
to not be you.
Living with a second nose. It's like, I don't know, I only have one nose, you know? Like, you're asking me like how I'm existing now, how I'm living now. And it's with all of these things in mind that I wouldn't have had in mind if I hadn't have done the work in this program. And a lot of that work is going, what is like what do I need to bring up? Like, what are these aspects of myself and my understanding that I need to bring up? And then you look for like the lowest part and you go, oh, well, I bring that up. And when you bring that up, you don't realize it, but it's like also shooting these other parts that you've learned up higher. And you're like, you weren't even working on those things, but you just brought this one thing up. And all of a sudden, like, it's like, oh, I'm more untethered. Oh, I'm more untethered. My bulletproof vest is like now here, you know? And it's like, it's this interconnectedness in the program that you can't you can't teach it. You have to do the work and learn it. You have
Yeah.
to pull those things up from the bottom, your lowest, what do you call them? Your low
The lowest
tides,
tides. Yeah. So I
your
think that's
lowest
the best
tides.
analogy I can have to that one is like, just to explain to people what the lowest tides mean. So, I think a lot of people will find themselves in these cycles where they have the up and down cycles, right? Of like complacency and also panic. And I think what you'll find here is sometimes like, let's look at a simple concept like the messiness of your room, of your desk, for example. So let's say on day one, you clean up your desk. It's very nice, very neat. It's cool, right? You're up here. What happens is you get complacent when you're up here, and your room slowly starts to get messy and messy and messier until it reaches down here to the point where like it's so messy to the point where you can't even take it. And like, fuck this. So what happens is like you reached your lowest acceptable hygiene standards. And only during when you reach that lowest acceptable hygiene standards do you summon whatever energy you have. Even if you're sleepy, even if you're tired, you look at your desk right now and you're like, fuck it, I got to do it now. And that's when you don't procrastinate anymore. That's when you do the work, right? So the story behind this is we will do nothing to achieve our dreams, but we will fight like hell to not breach our lowest standards. Right. So
Yes, 100%.
This is also another reason, another way that we change the way we goal set in our life. So a lot of people can't stick to their New Year's resolutions. Why? Because they set them as goals. They don't set them as lowest standards. They don't raise their lowest standards. So what I think Zackary is saying here is like, in order for you to really better yourself, you have to raise your lowest standards. For me, for example, right now, I make $3 million a year. Yeah, my lowest standards is very different than most people, right? If I make 1 month, for example, less than $200,000, I'm like, what the fuck? Something is wrong, right? Different standards here. But it doesn't mean my standards is better than yours. It's just different. So I think the only way to better yourself is to keep raising it. But as we keep raising it, I think what you're saying is it lends us to forget where we started from.
Yeah,
because it becomes your new
like,
norm. It becomes your new norm, your new level set kind of thing, right?
Right. I can remember who I was, but I can't remember
The
how
details.
exactly my mind was working because none of that makes sense to me anymore. It just doesn't make sense to think that way. So I mean, I could, I guess I could sort of remember. It was just I can remember how it just feels dumb. Like I feel like I'm having to remember a less educated version of myself. It's like and I am. That's what you're asking me to do. I'm much
it's like
less educated.
Flowers for Algernon kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Did you read that? Like, it's about this story. Yeah, it's about this guy who's like he was born kind of a bit stupid, right? A bit ignorant, and then some doctor made him smart. By the time he was smart, he forgot what it was like to be kind of dumb, and then eventually that wore off. And he became dumb again, and he forgot what it was like to be smart. It's almost like that. It's like I can't remember the details of that anymore. It's not me anymore. So I can totally relate to that because like now, even though my life has only changed in the recent like 3 years, financially speaking, I forgot what it was like to be my old self. I forgot. It's just so many nuances.
The thought process,
it's
like
so different. Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about my thought processes then. Like I do now. I was a backseat driver to my own emotions, to my own in a lot of ways to my own actions, So now I have control over those things. It's just so bizarre, man. It's so bizarre. I'm like I said, sometimes I'll be driving and I'll just start like cracking up laughing because I'm like, this is how I'm living now. Like this is how I get to live my life. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did want to touch on one more point before we leave.
Yeah.
And the last point I want to touch on is about this notion of how you cannot escape the work of self-growth. You cannot escape that. And how once you self-grow, you reach a point when you reach this confident state when you can replicate your success. So let's talk about the first thing first, which is like that notion of you cannot escape the need to grow. Because I think a lot of people looking at your story of leaving your existing relationship to seek a different kind of relationship that in your subjective view is a higher peak, right? That you want.
Maybe.
I mean, again, like, there's a part of you I know feels guilty to say that, because like if you're saying, oh, I want to go for a higher peak, that means like Haiti is like a lower peak, right?
Yeah.
But I think like if we get political correctness aside,
I guess the way I think about it is I already have what I want with Katie, with my wife. You know, I already have what I want with her. So it's like, it's not that it's even better. It's just that we have what we want together. You know,
I get it.
We're both happy. We're both happy. We have goal alignment there. You know, like
I get it.
And it's not. This is a great outcome. This is an outcome win for both of us. Like, and we still have each other. We still love each other. Like, we'll always be there for each other. We'll be there for the kids together. And, you know, the kids are doing so well. Like, we're in two separate places now. Like, I have my own apartment. She's got her own house, and, you know, we live separately, and we co-parent so wonderfully. Like, it's just, it's a breeze. It's not anything like I thought it would be. It's not anything like I tried to convince her it would be. You know what I mean? When I was before the program, and I'm like, well, think about the kids, you know, the kids are loving it. We spend time together. The time we spend individually with the kids is even more powerful and meaningful, because like they're our focus on those days. You know, it's not just like every day's idle kid time and sometimes we do things with them. It's like, no, this is the time we spend with our kids. And so they're eating up. They love it. And
it's
and
like
they still see
parents
that love each other.
It just goes to show too, what I always say is like, if you know the right process, you can thrive under any structure.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like some people say like, oh, divorce will ruin the kid's life, whatever it is. Actually, it doesn't really matter. Okay, you stay married, you get divorced. If you can't communicate, if you fight all the time, whether you stay married or not, you're still gonna be effed up.
Right.
You're still gonna mess them up. But if you understand how to communicate, even if you divorce or not, it doesn't matter. They're still gonna be fine, kind of thing. You know?
And see that's the thing too, is like those paradigms you hear, those statements, those are all averages. You know, that's the middle ground. Yes, divorce can be bad for kids, but can they be bad for kids who've gone through this program, who have an understanding of how relationships work? You know what I mean? Like, can they be bad? Like, can it be bad? I don't know. I don't think the average answer to that would be yes. I think the average answer would be no. I think your students, on the whole, their kids are gonna, if you know, of course, your students don't reconcile and divorce happens. I still think their kids are gonna benefit from having their parents having done this program. You know,
but you know what's interesting? We've done this long enough now to the point where we're getting multi-generational clients. Meaning like dads who are 50, 60 would come into the program and they would actually ask their son to join the program.
Oh, wow.
And so we actually have like dads and sons in here now, which is touching for me. It's like, whoa, this is like multi-generational shit. But I do want to go back to the point of like, you cannot escape the work, right? Because again, like, it goes back to the notion of, if you have the right process, you can thrive under any circumstance. If you don't have it, you will struggle under any. And I think a lot of people looking at your story will look at this and go, oh, Zackary left his partner and found someone better. Understand that this didn't just happen. This happened after many, many months of growth, of real growth. So if you haven't grown and you make the same decision that Zackary made, you're not going to get the same results. You're just going to be perpetuating the same problems over and over again, because again, you don't understand the right process to thrive under any circumstance. That's the key issue here, right? And you can ignore that. You can deny that. A lot of people deny that. I'll just find someone better. Well, go ahead, try it. And notice that your relationship might have a honeymoon period. And you might say at that point, Jeff, I proved you wrong. Okay, let's wait 5 years.
Right.
See if you
Exactly.
die by 1,000
Yeah.
cuts the same way that you died by 1,000 cuts
Mhm.
before, because you're doing all these
Exactly.
things that
Yeah.
you don't know, you're not even aware of, that is destroying safety and all these things, right? So I let people do that, and I let people just like have the slaps in the face in their own life until they eventually wake up and go like, I can't escape this anymore. I really
Mhm.
understand now how I can escape this.
Yeah.
And I think once you actually grow inside, like Zackary has here, you get this insane level of confidence, because like for you to say to yourself like, okay, I have something good here with Katie, right? I have something good here. But for you to say like, I don't want to pursue a romantic relationship there, but I want to pursue somewhere else, that takes some balls. That takes courage. That takes confidence. Confidence in yourself to know like, I can replicate success wherever I go. I can create relationships wherever I go. Sure, there's plenty of fish in the sea, but I know how to catch those fish, kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't even have to catch them anymore. They just, I'm just floating around and
You're just jumping into your boat.
yeah, it's that part is crazy. Like, yeah, I'm antithetical, but I'm a monogamous person. I commit myself to whoever I'm with, but um, they're in the DMs all of a sudden. I can't explain it, Geoffrey, because never in my life, I mean, I really don't understand it. I would love to. It's very new, and you know, obviously that helps your
It's actually
confidence
very
as well.
simple.
Like,
It's actually
yeah,
very simple, Zach.
yeah.
You know, how many times have you heard the words, for example, like, wow, when you paraphrase someone, when you make someone feel deeply understood with your mindset, with your frameworks, and they say to you, like, I've never actually had someone ask me that before. I've never actually had someone understand me like that before.
Yeah.
It's many times. And the truth is this, like, the bar isn't high. The bar to create great relationships isn't really that high, because
Right.
your competition is pretty bad. Most
Yeah.
people have no idea how to create deep connections. And so when we
Right.
say like become irreplaceable, it's not like you become irreplaceable.
Right.
Like, dude, you just need to be 10x better than most people, but that's not hard to do.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Jeffrey's not asking you to put on a Iron Man suit, you know, save New York City. It's like, yeah, I think confidence is a big part of it. It's like, the confidence to know that even if failure happens in your life, you take care of it. You have the power. You have the power in the mindset to just overcome whatever it is.
Yeah.
You don't let the, you know, disguises and the illusions pull you down and stop you from fixing things. You know, you're above those things. You've got clarity when it comes to problem solving. And for me, that's something I never had. There was always a desire in the way, or an illusion in the way, and or bad paradigm in the way, or lack of self-efficacy in the way. I'd always come up with some excuse not to fix the problem. And now I'm like, fuck this, we're fixing the problem, and we're gonna work on it until we do. And you know what? It's not gonna be hard because I've got the tools. I've got the tool set. You know.
That's the amazing part about building a confidence of self-growth is like, you lean into, we're talking about leaning into problems, thriving under problems. Before we were the ones who escape from it, who feel threatened by problems. Now we're like, problems, fuck yeah, bring it on.
Yeah,
More
I'm
of
totally
it.
unflappable.
Yeah.
Like things that would have just pissed me off. Like, it's nothing. It's so funny. It's just life is so short, and we only get one opportunity to live it. It's a waste of time to be bothered by things that will happen. Bad things will happen to you. Like, it's inevitable.
Yeah.
Entropy. It happens. It's coming for you. Like, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Things degrade over time. You know it's going to happen. You know it's going to happen. So why are you so surprised when it does?
Exactly.
Embrace it.
Embrace it.
Embrace
It's
it.
part of it. So I want to close off here because I do have another call in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But let's recap this for people a little bit, right? Because like, I think if I could sum it up into one phrase or like one paragraph of this whole conversation that we had, is that reconciliation is never the goal. Reconciliation should never be the goal. Self-growth and becoming an irreplaceable person should always be the goal. If you become irreplaceable, You don't have to worry about petty shit like, is your partner seeing someone else? You don't have to worry about all these petty stuff like, is there hope for my relationship? You become irreplaceable. You become a magnet, right? Magnet. So it's almost like I don't worry about the politics of sales calls and what to say during sales calls and how to convince people. It's like, dude, people are applying for my program left and right without me even asking them to, right? I become irreplaceable. I transcend all the petty problems.
Right.
Not only that, when you become irreplaceable, you get to choose.
Yes. Yeah.
You
I was
can
going to say
choose
that.
you can choose to use your superpowers to stay, or you can choose to use your superpowers to leave the relationship amicably and pick
Yes.
another one. But
Or none, even.
Or none. Do whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
But again, if you don't grow yourself, though, you lose no matter what. If you don't grow yourself, not only will you not reconcile, not only will you keep repeating the same problems over and over again, but you will never have that higher level wins that goes outside even your imagination right now. You will always be staying within your imagination. You can never transcend your imagination.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest shame, because we only have one life.
Exactly.
And our time is ticking every single day. Mm-hmm. So what do we want to do?
Right.
Let it tick. The shame is when people like realize this stuff at 90 years old.
Yeah.
Great. You realize at 90, which is fine, but you only got 5 years to enjoy this shit.
Right.
The best time is always today, because today you have the most time when you can enjoy the fruits of your learnings, of your growth, and you can feel this life of confidence, of freedom, of happiness longer. So guys, don't wait. So I want to close off on that. Guys, if you want to discover here the depth of what Zackary is telling us about, and the depth of self-growth, so that you can have options if you want. Right? You can do whatever you want. Then you can join me in my free masterclass down below this video. The masterclass is going to be about an hour and a half long. And if you want to submit your application for the program, you can do so at the end of the masterclass. We'll show you how to do that, some instructions on that. But be sure to pay attention to the application process very deeply. We are very selective. We only select right now less than 7.3% of people who apply, right? You want to make sure that you're ready. So that's the way to join. I hope to see a lot more of your application soon. But Zackary, I guess any last words, last minute advice for people who were in your situation at that point in time?
Yeah. I don't think you can really truly prepare yourself. Like before you start the program, I don't think you can prepare yourself for the change you'll go through if you do it the way you're supposed to. For me, it's felt miraculous in a way. Like I can pinpoint the parts of my life that I know wouldn't be here if it wasn't, for the work I've done, for everything you've taught me. I can see where its value is. Like I can actually see the things. I can write them down on a piece of paper, but there are also things that I don't understand and things that I'll continue to learn and grow from. I'll never stop this program. I'm not going to stop now.
Good.
Like I'm going to keep doing it. I've been slow through the phases, through the videos, and I need to start watching more of those again. But I'll never stop participating. I'll never stop thinking about how I can improve these things. And I'm here as long as you are. So expect me to be around for a while.
Good. Good. So yeah, if you guys join, you'll see Zackary there, and you'll see kind of like the level that people are playing at too. Like Zackary's not the only one who's playing at a very high level, right? It's like we're surrounded by people who are playing at a very high level, and I think you'll find that there's no other community like this. We're just men of a different caliber, a different breed here.
It's so inspiring.
Awesome. It's so inspiring. Yeah. It inspires me every day. So it's awesome.
Yeah, and you see the patterns too in the newer members a lot too. Like once you've been in a while, you see the same patterns. They initially start off like, "What are you doing?" But then realize they start to wake up eventually as they get osmosis and assimilation from Yeah.
being surrounded by all these
Yeah.
high performing men.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Amazing.
It's so funny.
Anyway,
It's so funny.
Zach,
I remember
I do have to
messaging
run to
me
another
during
call.
this.
Yeah. I do
Yes,
have
yes.
to run to another call, but I had a lot of fun with this one. And I think we discovered and discussed some things that were controversial. And I think we painted a story for people quite nicely of like the different thought processes and the different layers of thought processes that led you to your decision and why, dude, it's totally fine. Like not reconciling is totally fine. I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's not this heavy thing. It's not it's not this big heavy thing, which is like it's sort of cracked me up, but you know, that's fine.
Good.
Yeah, it's not big. It's not
I gotta sign off.
Anyway, Geoffrey,
Sorry.
love you so much. Thank you for everything. Thanks for the interview.
All right.
Okay.
What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
Much better than the first one, right?
Yeah,
like
you think so?
We got to talk more about the sensitive topics that I think a lot of people would be afraid to talk about.
Oh yeah. No, in the first one, I was still sort of in that gray zone too, where I'm like, you know, like I was already sort of there. But yeah, I just feel just pure freedom, man.
Good.
No bad days. No such thing as a bad day anymore. And yeah, and it's all subjective anyway. Like you get to decide if it's bad or not, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, Zach, I gotta run for real this time, but
yeah.
Love it, man.
Thanks for the opportunity, Jeff.
See you in the program soon, okay?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay. Yeah, of course, you're always there. So
yeah. Bye, man.